Welcome to another interview at the Allstar Summit. My name is Kayode Damali, host and from BBC The Apprentice 2018. Today we have a very special guest, being Claire Young. Now, Claire was on a show in 2008 where she won 4 tasks, unfortunately lost 6 tasks. However, that didn't stop her from becoming runner-up in Series 4 of The Apprentice. So please give a virtual round of applause for Claire.
Thank you.
How you doing, Claire?
I'm good. I'm really good. It's nice for everyone to be back at work, back at school, back at college, back at university, because that's what we work with young people. So it's been a busy week, a good week, a busy week.
Good. Now, before we get into it, I've got a little surprise which I've been doing for all the candidates. I think this is probably my favorite part. I think I've been smiling more about this than anyone else. So are you ready for this little surprise I've got for you, Claire?
I feel nervous.
You were nervous? No, don't be nervous. Are you ready? It's not even, you know what, I hype it up so much. It's not even that exciting, but for me, it's exciting. Are you ready? Ta-da! Or if you want, I can put on this one for you.
Yeah, hi.
It's so fun. I think going through finding photos for you is so fun. You've got so much high quality HD photos available on Google, so it's very easy. Or if you want to, I can just put on the backdrop for you. London. So you got choice of 3, Claire. What do you want? You individual, London, or the whole group?
I'll go for London.
London. Okay, brilliant.
Yeah.
So we leave it here. So first question then, Claire, what was your life like before the show in 2008? What was your life like?
I think I was fairly unusual to a lot of the other candidates who took part in my series, that many of them worked for themselves or they had businesses running from bedrooms. They were entrepreneurs in some shape or form. Whereas for me, I went to school, did my A-levels, went to university, and had worked in the corporate sector. I'd moved to London and worked in the beauty industry, health and beauty. So I worked for L'Oreal in marketing, Colgate-Palmolive, the toothpaste company, in sales. And the role I was doing before The Apprentice, I was a senior buyer for Superdrug. So I was corporate through and through, and had no experience of running a business, being enterprise, so to speak, because I'd been in the corporate sector, which is a different world. So, yeah, it was, I think leaving The Apprentice, that was probably one of the biggest differences, that life before, I'd always been an employee. Never really thought aspirations growing up. I didn't have people around me running their own businesses. Nobody in my family ran their own business. And leaving The Apprentice, that was the biggest difference, really, that I wanted to be my own boss.
Just touching on that, you mentioned that you came down to London. Do you want to share about where you're from originally, so they know where you're from?
Yeah, I was born in South Africa, and we lived abroad.
I did not even know that then, actually. And for those, I've known Claire for a while now. I did not know that you're born in South Africa, actually.
I was born in South Africa, and we lived in Canada, and then we came to the UK with my dad's job. We settled in Yorkshire. Then my father's role got moved back to London. He's a Londoner and decided he wanted to bring his family up in Yorkshire for better quality of life, better schools. So we stayed here. So I went from literally Johannesburg to Canada to Wakefield, West Yorkshire. And we are the European capital of rhubarb. So if you've had rhubarb, pink, you must have had rhubarb.
Wakefield is?
Yeah, Wakefield.
Oh, right. Did not even know that.
We are the European capital of rhubarb. So if anybody's watching this and has had rhubarb, it's probably come from Wakefield. So I live in Wakefield, which is about 8 miles south of Leeds. And it is a great location because we're close to Leeds, Manchester. We're on the train line down to London. So I can leave home and be at King's Cross in 2 hours. And I do love being in the north of England.
Okay, then. So you mentioned that you didn't have any business experience before applying for the show. I mean, you still got on, you still did very well in it. Do you think that was an advantage for you in that one sense, or do you feel it was a disadvantage for you when you're doing the task compared to the other candidates?
I think it was a definite advantage because I had no inhibitions, no barriers. I didn't think, oh, this isn't going to work, because I literally just had a go at everything. And I think that with The Apprentice, you are stretched because you've got to be adaptable. Everybody's, to an extent, good at a job where they've got their little black book of contacts, they're sat at the desk, they've got the comfort of knowing the colleagues, knowing who they're dealing with. You can use Google, use the phone. But I think The Apprentice really just stretched people's natural ability to be out of the comfort zones and to be adaptable. It's one of the key survivals of business is being flexible and adaptable to changing circumstances.
And I guess,
but I think looking back at being in the corporate sector, I was very entrepreneurial to my job role. I had new ideas, new approaches. I wasn't ever afraid of trying something, which looking back now, lots of people are afraid to try things. And it was those things what got me recognised and promoted. And I did move up the ladder very quickly at a young age.
And I guess it's because you never had any preconceived notions of how the business should be run, because you didn't have entrepreneurial background. You just, I guess, were very open-minded and took every task what came to you, right?
Yeah, I'm not creative at all in the sense of I can't draw, I'm not particularly musical, but I'm very creative in coming up with ideas. I can step back from a situation. I think it's good to have a fresh perspective sometimes. People are too close to see. And I'm good at problem solving.
So what made you want to apply then? Why did you apply?
So going back in time, a long time ago, when The Apprentice first started, it was on BBC Two. Before it came onto BBC One to be this huge multi-million viewing figures. And as a family, we all used to watch it. So it was very low key when it was on TV. It was very different. But I'd say within series 2, it was cult viewing. So Wednesday, 9 o'clock, everybody watched The Apprentice. And the next day you dissect it at work. You talk about who you liked, who you didn't like. You'd slag them off. You'd say who was crap, who was good. And we watched it. I actually applied for series 3. Well, I tried to, but I missed the deadline. And I can remember just watching it and being one of those people screaming at the TV that they were useless. And I'm a big believer you put your money where your mouth is. If you say you're going to do something, get on and do it, because most people don't. And I actually thought there was one episode in series 3. They went to a French farmer's market and they were selling cheese. They were cooking sausages on baked bean cans. It was a joke of a task. And I thought, seriously, if this is Britain's best business talent, God help us. I was like, I could do better. So I applied, and literally the 5 minutes of applying on the BBC website literally changed my life.
No, I completely relate to that. What do you think about the come downs coming off reality TV? I mean, you see it a lot in terms of Love Island and a lot of shows. What do you think about the whole nature of reality TV to coming back to normal life?
I think now the people who go on, I mean, Big Brother's not alive anymore, but Love Island, they are... I remember the night before The Apprentice went on TV, Alan said to me, "You are not going to know it's going to hit your life." I thought, you know, no disrespect to him, but he's an older guy. I thought, yeah, whatever.
Did you speak to him on a personal level? Like, I don't think I've ever had like Alan talking to me how he spoke to you. How was your relationship with him?
Really good, but I worked for him as part of the process, so he's given me so much advice, which has really helped me. Even today, it helps me in my business. So much advice he gave me. But he said, you are not going to know what's hit your life. And some of these people who go onto Love Island, again, you've got to trust who's managing you. You are a piece of meat and people want you for endorsements. The PR agencies will know exactly what they want to do with you before you've even had episode 1. They'll have endorsements lined up. You've got to stay true to what you want to be. So after The Apprentice, I was approached with lots more reality TV. And a friend said to me, "Where do you want to be in 5 years' time?" And I explained, I want to be a credible businesswoman. I think I want to be working with young people. It sounds cheesy, but I want to make a difference. And they literally got all the reality TV offers and just said, forget it. Forget all of that and focus on what's true to you and what you want to do.
So didn't the money, I know a lot of the reality TVs pay well coming off shows, didn't that sway you at all?
When we did the show, it was a different media age. It was before the Northern Rock crisis and lots of the banks crashed. So in 2008, people were receiving huge contracts for doing tabloid stories and reality TV. I earned enough money via the press things I did to have a comfortable lifestyle without having to sign up to a load of crap I wasn't interested in.
You didn't have to sign your life away or sell your soul.
Didn't have to sign my life away. But it depends depends what your strategy is going into reality TV. If you want to go on TV and have 12 months of trash stuff afterwards, make 100 grand, bank it, and then move on to something else, everyone's different. But you've just got to, for me, it was important to stay authentic to what I wanted and to be respected, because now I work with young people, working in schools. I just don't think I would have had that profile if I'd done all the other reality TV.
So just bring it back to your Apprentice now. What was like your favorite types of tasks?
I absolutely loved anything to do with selling. I loved selling fish. I loved selling wedding dresses. We went to the NEC for the National Wedding Show, and the lady who ran part of the NEC came up to me and said, "You've done this before. You're really good." Never done it before. But if you're a good salesperson, you can sell anything, can't you? Absolutely loved it. We went to Marrakesh for our treasure hunt task, which was really, really hard. If anyone's been to Marrakesh, in the souks, it's like a rabbit warren. You go in one, you come out another. It was chaotic. And I can remember it was really, really hot. The crew were having to stop like every 25 minutes because it was like 35 to 36 degrees carrying all the kits. There was one task which surprised me, I didn't particularly enjoy. It was we had to do a branding exercise and we had to brand a box of tissues. I mean, what a boring task.
Is that because you said you're not very creative? Is that why?
It was just really boring. And also it was episode, I think 11, we were all tired, really, really tired. It's so hard to be creative when you're physically exhausted. By that point of The Apprentice, we felt like we had constant jet lag. So we were waking up 5 every morning, you know, doing 20-hour days. Then in the boardroom, if you want a treat, you left London to go out of London for a treat. You almost got to the point where you were quite happy in the final 3 because you meant that you stayed in the house or went to the park and relaxed.
I mean,
as opposed to filming a treat.
I mean, talking about the final 3, Claire, you appeared in the final 3 a lot. Did that knock you at all? Or, I mean, was it 6 times, right?
I was in there all the time. So I remember, I always said sort of jumping around on conversations. When I watched the show, I thought, which idiot would volunteer to be project manager in episode 1? You did it.
I did.
And I did it.
Well. No, you did it as well.
And I was myself. I remember we were sat there. It was like 7 o'clock in the morning, girls versus boys. It did make me laugh when it came on TV because you've got all the videos of candidates saying, "I'm amazing, I'm brilliant." Not one single person volunteered apart from me. So again, put your money where your mouth is. If you're really that good, put your hand up. But I naturally put my hand up, volunteered. So from the word go, I was quite prominent in the show. Again, when you're filming, you don't think about, am I going to be on airtime a lot? You just think, I want to know what the task is, win the task, and get back to the house and go on to the next one. So I featured a lot from literally the moment the series started. And people just used to lie. There was a lot of bullshit. I can remember there was one scene they didn't air. I said, never mind the boardroom. This is called the bullshit room. I've never heard so much bullshit in my life.
But who was?
The candidates. People just used to lie.
In the boardroom? They used to lie in the boardroom? Yeah. Like, oh, right.
People would be talking and they'd say, well, you know, Alan, this is what happened. I was like, no, you know, it's not what happened. And because I was so vocal, it got to the point where, as the series went through, Alan started asking me my opinion. So, Claire, what do you think? What happened?
Yeah. Because
I never actually gave a monkey's what anybody else thought. If I knew what I was saying was right, I would say it. Obviously, if it wasn't right, I'd just keep quiet. But I did say at one point, we're on a national TV show with cameras, so why are you lying? It was a really explosive boardroom.
And so being in the bottom 3, did that, I mean, I'll be completely honest. I think I was in the bottom 3 once or twice. And I think the first time I was really not, I was like, man, I really didn't want to be. How did you manage to persist through? I couldn't imagine doing it 6 times. I think I was in there once. And then the second time when I got fired, doing it 6 times, were you never thinking, oh my God, it's going to be me to go now? Because surely...
It was horrendous. It was absolutely horrendous. And I remember episode 4, and I'm good friends with him today. Simon Smith got fired. He'd served on the front line in Basra. Wow. And the boardroom was so vicious, he almost cried. And I actually thought Alan was going to fire me in that episode. Just before he summed up, I said, Sir Alan, please, can I say one more thing? And I literally had a plea speech and said, there's so many people here who are hiding. I've got stuck in from day one. I might be what do you call me, a motor mouth, a big gob. But I'm here and I'm here to do business. and he saved me. So I remember one of the candidates, Rafe, said, when are people going to realise he's not going to fire her? And then Rafe took me in that day and he got fired. The thing is, you know what Sir Alan's, I call him Sir Alan. He likes people who've got fire and determination and drive. And in a TV show, if you've got people who all sit there and don't say anything, you've got no content. Every time I was in the final 3, I think the producers thought, here she comes, because it was fiery.
So why did your team lose so much?
I found it, probably the biggest challenge of The Apprentice I found was working with people who were not very competent. And when you're not in charge of a task, every time I led, we won. It's really hard to work with people who are not competent, are not particularly skilled, will not listen, and you end up losing a task. And then because I would say, you're not skilled, you're incompetent, you made the wrong decision, you did the wrong thing, I got taken into the bottom 3.
You think your fellow candidates didn't like you much then, Claire? Or you don't really care?
No, the thing is, when people got fired, everybody said, are you really sad to see them go? At the end of it, it's a competition. If someone gets fired, you are one step closer towards the end. But that's the psychology of The Apprentice is so difficult. You have got to stand out as an individual, but work as a team.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily have to be liked, but you have to work as a team. And when people came back for the final and worked for me, it was great. I did get on really well with everybody. More so the boys who appeared. There was in the women's, there was definite queen bee syndrome. People wanting to be in charge. I'm very happy to work for people as long as they're good. So as we got further down the process and the rubbish people got fired, so to speak, and you were working with really good people, that was one of the best things about The Apprentice. You're working with these people who are so driven, talented, motivated. It really lifts you to work with people like that. It definitely brings out the better in you.
Do you keep in touch with anyone now? Lee McQueen or anyone you mentioned before?
Yeah, all of it, pretty much. All of us. We had our 10-year reunion a couple of years ago in Soho, which was really nice. We all went out for dinner. Speak to Rafe, Lee, Helen, Michael Sophocles, Kevin, Alex, and everybody has gone on to achieve such great things, which is just really nice to see. And I think I've always celebrated other people's success. I think there's more than enough to go around. So probably the other side of The Apprentice I'd never experienced was people being sort of jealous and bitter and a bit twisted. But I've learned as I've got older that happens sometimes, and you see people being successful. Was I've been brought up in a school and a home that if people did really well, it was a really positive thing and to be celebrated.
We saw that with a lot of the candidates in the 2019 series, a lot of them going at it publicly on social media as well. I guess that's a complete contrast to the way that you guys were. How do you think you would have coped in today's show if you were on a show in modern time?
I cringe. I was talking about this yesterday with somebody about an apprentice candidate. I cringe when I see some of the content on social media, people slagging each other off, some of the language they use. It's just not professional. That might call me boring, but I am professional, got a successful business. How would I cope? I go into everything full throttle. If I commit to something, I commit to it. So if I went back to do The Apprentice now, if they did a charity version or an Allstars, favourites from the past going back in, I would commit to it 100%. And whatever the outcome of social media is, the outcome is. Probably wouldn't even look at it. I do my tweets or Instagram, and I'm not interested in looking at hundreds of comments and listening to trolls saying they don't like me. I've got other things to be thinking about.
Okay, so after the show now, you finished it. It's finished being aired. What was next for you immediately? I know that Karen gave you an offer as well, for example.
Yeah, so I was the first year Karen Brady was involved in the show. She interviewed me. She wasn't one of Sir Alan's allies at that time, so we had Margaret Mountford. But Karen did say, if you don't hire Claire, I will. And she offered me a job, which I turned down at Birmingham City purely because I'm not particularly interested in football. It's not a passion of mine. It's not something which I'd get up every morning and be like, yes, I'm off to go to the football club. But she is an amazing woman, an amazing businesswoman. And I listened. I had so much advice from Sir Alan that he said, for the next 3 to 6 months, don't take any offers. Decide what you want to do, because you are going to get inundated with work. And I listened to what he said. I did a few things, but I decided by the end of the 6 months, I wanted to start a business, and then started my business, which I've run 10 years later, which is School Speakers, and you're one of my speakers.
Yes, now tell us about School Speakers.
So after the Apprentice, you finish and you're back to real life, which is a bit of an anticlimax. You've had this amazing, for me, I thought it was going to be 12 weeks of my life. It was 12 months, because from applying to filming to working with Alan Sugar, it was 12 months of my life. So we finished. And the next morning, I can remember thinking, what am I going to do? I had spoken to some people who'd taken part in the show, and they all said, you need your own website, which nowadays is normal, but going back 10, 12 years, people just did not have their own websites. But you needed a point of contact. And I remember logging on to claireyoung.co.uk, looking at my emails, thinking maybe I've got like 5 emails. I had hundreds of emails from events and some job offers, and I had a lot of schools contacting me to go and visit their schools. I'd never been into my school since I'd left as a A-level student. So this whole idea of going into schools, because I didn't work in education, I'd worked in the beauty market, I quickly learned about a new sector. I learned about the speaker market. I learned about education, that schools use speakers to go in and speak to staff and students about a range of topics. So I started doing a few talks, and then it snowballed. Then I started having too much work for myself. So I was giving work to other speakers. And literally, the light bulb moment, I just came up with an idea that there was lots of agencies working with the corporate market, but nobody was looking after schools. And I think I started with 52 speakers, and now we've just reduced it to just over 300. And we work with schools all across the country. We work internationally. We also do staff CPD, which is continuing professional development, conference speakers. We work with prisons, the services, anything to do with young people we work with. And that was my idea in my study, which is now an award-winning business.
10 years later, right?
10 years later, and I've got lots of people who work with us, who we give work to, which is nice, because obviously we're in a climate where everybody wants a job and everybody wants work and everybody needs money. So from that one idea, we've just, it's a big business.
With you being from The Apprentice, setting up School Speakers, do you find there's a lot of people who come off The Apprentice coming to you to get on your books? And if so, or if not, what advice would you say if they do want to?
Yeah, we do. People do contact us. I would say over the last 4 to 5 years, I've seen a significant change in people's attitudes. Big difference in the attitudes between like old school apprentice candidates.
What do you mean?
And like the new school. There is a definite sense of entitlement from the...
Oh.
Yeah. A bit shocked that they have to actually contact the school themselves, that they have to get to an event themselves. It's called being a grown-up and having a speaker job, that you speak to the client and you actually get to the event and you do it with good grace and you do it really well. So we do have people who contact us, and we're always open to listening to new speakers, but it's a competitive market, and I would say it's pretty saturated. There are a million speakers out there. So you have got to have a very clear, unique selling point, what your message is, who you are. If I was a teacher booking you, what is the value of bringing you into my classroom? At the end of an hour, what impact is it going to have on the young people?
Definitely. And what about Girls Out Loud? I've seen you're part of Girls Out Loud as well. Is that something you're still involved in, or?
Yeah, well, when I co-founded it with my friend Jane Kenyon, but as School Speakers grew and grew, and I had my daughter, I had to step back from something, because there is just not... That's one of the things of being an entrepreneur. You've got to focus on one thing, really. You can have lots and lots of ideas, but you've actually got to commit and focus to one thing. So I stepped back from the day-to-day running of Girls Out Loud, but still support it. It's a great initiative working with teenage girls.
Tell us what it's about. Tell us what does Girls Out Loud do?
Girls Out Loud, it's about raising aspirations. It's about really strong, positive role models. And role models is a phrase which is used all the time in the media and on the internet. I think it's one of the biggest, easiest changes you could have to young people, to put positive role models into primary schools and secondary schools, because some young people don't have role models at home, they don't have people who work, but don't have parents who've got any aspiration. You're never going to change cycles of behaviour if young people don't believe in what they can do and their ability and actually see what is possible. It's very difficult to achieve something without seeing it. I'm lucky that I had really good line managers in my corporate job, people who I looked at and thought, you know what, I want to be like you, because I saw how successful they were. So Girls Out Loud, the biggest part of it is the Big Sister Mentoring Programme. So Girls Out Loud goes into schools, does a range of activities, but they give girls a mentor for a year. And I think that support is absolutely key to changing their lives. And really, when you look at the success stories from Girls Out Loud, those mentors have changed their lives. Girls who are potentially going to go into NEET, expelled. NEET is neither in education, employment or training. Put them onto a big sister programme. I think nearly all of them have been successul in terms of avoiding being excluded. They've gone on to get jobs, you know, have a nice life, as opposed to, they've literally changed their lives through that programme.
That's amazing. Well, Claire, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the All-Star Summit, talking about your experience with The Apprentice before as well as afterwards. Is any final word you'd like to share?
No, it's been really nice chatting to you. It's lovely to have the time to do it. And I think that's one thing we've learned during lockdown, that time is just such a precious commodity, isn't it? So it's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Brilliant. Well, guys, that's another episode here of the All-Star Summit. Make sure you stay tuned where I'll be interviewing some more candidates from BBC The Apprentice. Take care.